Hello, welcome to another edition of Safe Space with Pastor Wale Afelumo. It's good to have you. I'm glad you are joining us. The first thing I'd like to tell you is to ensure that you share the page and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and also invite your friends to be a part of this. Today we have a very interesting topic. It's called this sexual violation, a growing concern. Just a few weeks ago, the nation was gripped by the murder of a 22-year-old university student, Uwa, and it generated a lot of controversy and outrage on social media. Where the perpetrators, what does our law say about that? Are sexual offenders punished in Nigeria? There's some level of gender wars. Is it that the men call people, that the women call people? All of those things have been happening on the social media in our country, and of course, it's led to some protests by well-meaning Nigerians and human rights activists, because this is a menace that we need to curb. We need to do something about it. Now, I did a little research and I realized that rape is a worldwide problem. It is estimated that approximately 35% of women worldwide have experienced some form of sexual harassment in their lives. Majority of the countries that have data, that shows that Nigeria doesn't really have good enough data, that have data available on rape, report that less than 40% of rape victims come out to say anything about it. And only 10% go to law enforcement agencies to do anything about it. Now, we hope to lend our voice to help to tame this issue and bring a resolution of some sort, to bring comfort to perhaps victims and see the way forward and how to provide a safe society for our women, our daughters, our sisters. Today I have a guest in the studio, but I'll introduce her later. Right now, I want us to watch a video, a short video. It is a testimonial of a father whose two daughters were minors, by the way, were raped by their landlord. One was 9 and one was 13 when it happened. Please watch the story and we'll be right back.
2013, when we came back from village, when my mommy was late. So we were living with our daddy in a compound. And in that compound, there is no too much people, only one Muslim woman, and she always go to a place where they'll learn something before they'll come back. It's in the evening. So my daddy work was security, and he always staying there for 1 week, coming back, stay home for 1 week. So there is one time that my daddy went to work. When our landlord come to our room, he said he want to sleep in our room. When my daddy came back from work, I told him that our landlord come to our room, say he want to sleep in our room, but we said no, he went out. So my daddy went to the landlord and tell him. He said he was joking with us. So sometimes he always call me and my sister, his wife. My daddy will be calling him, stop, don't call these children your wife. It's not good. You have big children like us that senior us. Do not call us your wife. So 2013 December, before when my daddy went to work, I was outside, my sister was and my brother was with my auntie. So I said let me bath and meet them there. So I've already put on my clothes. I tie only wrapper. I carry my water. I want to take it to the bathroom. When my landlord called me that, let me come, you want to send me. I said, wait, I will not stay, I will come back now. Let me just go and bath. He said, no, you want to go out, they're calling for a walk. He said, let me come, you want to send me, let me collect the money and keep it. If I finish, then I'll go and buy the thing. I said, wait, I will not stay. He said, no, you want to go out. So I said, okay. When I knock, I enter. You have 2 rooms. this side and this side. I was inside this room. When I stand on the door and say, "Where is the money?" He was looking at the floor like he did not see the money. He said, "Let me help him check this room. Let him go and check that other room." So I said, "Okay." I was looking for the money there. So he went to my back and hold my mouth. When I was trying to remove his hand, and nobody was at home that time, only me and the woman in our compound house already went out. A Muslim woman, her name was Mama Aisha. She went out, so I was struggling with him when I fall. As I fall, then there is a bedsheet. I don't know whether it's a bedsheet or pillow, but the thing was very thick. He used it to cover my face and I can't breathe well, and my voice was not loud. When he raped me, then he told me that he would do it for the second time and let him explain what it means. He said if my daddy do not pay him his money, he will do it for the second time again, and if I tell my daddy there is a juju in their village that if he mistakenly run and they didn't see him, he went to the village, he will do the juju and the thing will make me die. So I was afraid, and that time if they give us any money in our church, we always spend it. We didn't used to tell our daddy, but that day he gave me and my sister 500. So I tell my sister, as my sister tell me what happened to her, I say if she wants us to tell daddy, let's gather this money. I need you to buy what we show, and if they ask us, then we explain. So she said okay. She gave me the 500. I went to the market. I bought shoe for my brother and for her. Then the remaining money I used to buy Brazilian wool for her, because that time I did not used to plait hair. So I plait the head. Then they wear the shoe. They went to my auntie's house. When they asked my auntie asked them what happened. So who give them this money? They say it's our landlord. So my auntie called me and I tell her our landlord follow us on our back when we were going to our auntie's house. So as our auntie was asking us questions, he just shouted that Kelebe don burst. My auntie now called him that what happened? He just went home. He didn't talk anything. So the next day when our daddy come back, I told my sister, you have to say the truth. So as my daddy were asking us, I wanted to tell him, but I remember that he said if I talk and he will kill me, and I see that he was not at home. I didn't see him, so maybe he have already run. He will go and check and kill me. So I was afraid. I didn't tell him anything, only my sister that tell him. So as he take her, when we were in the police station, then I told my auntie. So we went to the police station. They asked us, we explained. Then we take us to Metama Hospital. They do some tests and give us some drugs. So that is what happened.
When they call me, they take my statement, take the children's statement all. But unfortunately, there is something that's been touching me in this our country. All this, my inspector that handled inspector crime, telling me that the man, that they don't have any case to do with the woman, because the man, as he commits, is at run. So he follow his sister house. From there, he pass. So the sister did not commit anything to them to hold her there. I said, okay, no problem. When we went to NAPTIP, I call one NGO where they say they want to hear, as far as I take the case to NAPTIP, they want to confirm from NAPTIP, the case is there. We went there, they say yes, the case is there. But then they don't want to join issue with the police. If I want NAPTIP to take the case, I should withdraw the case from police. I say, NAPTIP, you people are not everywhere. Like my IPO, you people give me IPO, is living in Gwagwalada. If it happened to me to see this man in the night, who will I call? Was it no police that they close to me to call to come and pick him? So I say I will not withdraw the case. If they arrest the man, if police arrest the man, it's your duty to write to police that we interested in the case so that the police will not forward the case to you. But as far as you people say I should withdraw the case, there is nothing I can say. But for now, I will not withdraw the case yet for police station. Let me see how the thing will go. Since this thing happened, I think people are telling me to look for someone that will counsel them, which I did not find somebody, or I did not ask, because if you ask me, I don't know who will I go and tell him, say, please counsel these children for me. But if I'm at home, I used to sit them down and discuss, this is not the end of everything. Don't take it as anything. I may even post something in Facebook where people insulted me. I say, as far as my landlord raped my daughters, my children are going to be greater than his children. My family are going to live in well more than his family. Some people insulting me that why should I post this kind of things in Facebook? I said, I didn't mention their name, but I say what is paining me. But I'm telling them, if they live all these worldly things, they focus for education that I'm trying to put them through, they will even live good. They will even advise. I'm even always telling them, you people going to different places, seeing what is happening to other children. And some of them, like Dorothy Njemanze, she can explain what happened to her. You are hearing, maybe if you grow, reach where you continue your education, reach where you are, maybe you will open an organization that will fight the same case you are passing through.
Welcome back. What a story. I think it's a nightmare no parent wants to ever experience. But we'll go into that shortly. Let me introduce my in-studio guest. She's Dorothy Njemanze. She's an actress slash filmmaker. She's also a human rights activist. She's the executive director of Dorothy Njemanze Foundation. And I'll make you see her now. She'll tell you a little more about what she does. Dorothy, you're welcome to the studio.
Thank you for having me on.
Good to have you. I know you're a very busy woman. It was so difficult having a hold on you and getting you in here. I want to thank you for the sacrifice you've made to be here.
Thank you for the platform. It's not taken for granted.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Can you tell our viewers a little more about what Dorothy Njemanze Foundation is about?
Okay, so the Dorothy Njemanze Foundation uses the entertainment media for grassroots reorientation. We are first responders to sexual and gender-based violence situations. Our work helps to improve access to social justice, social inclusivity, and victim support. And so before COVID-19, for instance, we had an average of 6 cases reported to us weekly.
Weekly?
Yes, weekly. 50%.
To think that it's not only your organization, your foundation that does that. So yes, perhaps across the platform, different.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we had an average of 6 cases reported to us weekly before COVID-19, but during COVID-19, we had an average range of 4 to 7 cases reported daily. And 70% of these cases had some element of sexual violence linked to it. So even with the domestic violence situations, it was because the women did not want to have sex or did not want to have unprotected sex, and then they were beaten up into really bad conditions. So yes, that's what we do.
Wow. So let me start with that. So the COVID situation, why? Is it the mental stress on people, just the fact that people are at home, they have more time in their hands, that's making them get involved in such things?
The first problem I would say came by with the COVID situation was that when response to COVID was being thought up, the realities of women were not taken into cognizance. On the presidential task force team, we had two females who were conspicuously present, but they were there in the capacity of their offices. So one for finance and then the other one for humanitarian services. Now, when palliatives were being thought through, people did not think about, of course, women did not stop menstruating, girls did not stop menstruating, but sanitary pads were not included in the palliatives. Diapers for children were not included in palliatives. Diapers for the elderly were not included in palliatives. And these are essential needs that, you know, people... that women specifically needed. So the gender lens was not, you know, applied in response protocol, basic response protocol to COVID-19. How did it trickle down? During the COVID-19 period, after the lockdowns were declared, we that were rendering services to responding to sexual and gender-based violence were not seen as essential service providers. They say we are doing NGO work, as against seeing us for what it was. And so we had cases where people reported rape to us, but before we were able to make contact with the people, the 72 hours window for post-exposure prophylaxis had elapsed. And so we were praying that...
Can you explain that the 72-hour...
I'll do so. We're praying that the people will not get pregnant. So post-exposure prophylaxis is, you know, what you do, or the basic help you give people who have been exposed to rape. So hepatitis is tested for, HIV is tested for, medication to ensure you don't get pregnant is administered during that period, window. You know, it's a baseline assessment of your condition at the time of the rape. It also helps us establish the condition of the person who raped you at the time of the rape. But many people, especially those who depended on public transport, could not move around. They couldn't even get to the nearest police station, which entailed, you know, a transportation cost being incurred in any way, because there were no public transport means at the time. You couldn't call on the police to come to your place and take you to their station for reports. No. Even when we got to the police stations, we had situations where we were told to pay inquiry money before they would listen to people's complaints. Then you pay for money for file. Then you pay for the police to go to the crime scene. Then you pay for the different things.
That's a grueling experience.
Yes, absolutely. And so usually when holidays are about to start, we normally do messages and remind people that when you bring your children together, be watchful during sleepovers, be watchful during whatever the situation is. There are increased chances of sexual violations on children abound.
You're already answering
Believe
some of the things
everything.
I'll ask you later.
Oh, I'm happy to. Believe everything your child tells you, and you know, look into it. Deploy technology to observe spaces that your children are in often. Your lesson teacher and your lesson, the places
we'll
where
come
you're...
to all of those later. What would you say is the definition of rape, just for the purposes of our viewers? It goes without a saying, but I think we need to understand what it really means.
Okay, beautiful. Rape is just one of the kinds of sexual violations that exist. There are different kinds of sexual violations. Sexual violations could be verbal. Sexual violations could be physical. Rape being one of the physical kinds of sexual violations. Sexual violations could be psychological, you know. So rape is sex without consent. That's the easiest definition. And why do I use that definition? Because first of all, children cannot consent to sexual activity. The last I checked, people in Nigeria that cannot vote cannot consent to sexual activity. They are minors. That's the reason. And so it behoves on us as human beings to ensure that in our private spaces and spheres of influence, we ensure that nobody who is a minor is being is exposed to sexual activity. Yes, and if there's any such thing, mandatory reporting, like it happens in Lagos State. Let's report. And if we keep engaging the systems, then things will change. So sex is the one that people consent to, the one people agree to, the one people enjoy.
And that is mostly between adult to adults.
It has to be between adults. Anything other than an adult is, in the first instance, is a violation. It's not sex. So sex is the one people enjoy. Why I'm going this route is because people ask, is marital rape a myth? Can your boyfriend rape you? Yes, your boyfriend can rape you. I give you the basic, there's the basic tea consent story, this tea story. So that you like tea doesn't mean that every time I see you, I should force tea down your mouth. Or that you've said I should make tea for you doesn't mean that, you know, you can change your mind about consuming the tea before I offer it to you. You can start taking the tea and change your mind about consuming the tea. When you fall asleep while you're taking the tea, if I force it into your mouth, it's, you know, that's with tea.
Even though you had said you wanted.
Even though you had said you wanted it and you had even started it. And so it means that people can actually withdraw consent. So that's with tea.
So
as
no
basic
means no
as
at
tea.
whatever point it comes.
No means no at whatever point it comes. So when they say no, they just want you to prove you are stronger. It's a lie. Nobody enjoys being raped. That's the truth. And people come up with, oh, there's the BDSM thing. Well, there has to be two consenting
BDSM,
partners.
that's bondage, sadomasochism.
Yes. There have to be two consenting partners. Are there people that like things that way? Yes, there are. But there must be two consenting partners. Even with the BDSM those that practice it, they have safe words. So that you know when you are going beyond. Exactly. So when danger becomes dangerous. When danger becomes dangerous. And you see, even with two people who decided to go dangerous, they have safe words. So why is it only you on the trail, on the pathway to pleasure along the line of danger, and you're not thinking about the other person's safety or the other person's feelings? So there is marital rape. I'll tell you another thing I always tell people. The women, and we're emotional beings with human rights. Even the toilet that is inanimate and is designed strictly for you to use as a toilet. If you go into the toilet and it's not clean, no matter how pressed you are, the thing will go right back. If you go into the toilet and you are about to sit and you are purging, and you see something that looks like a tail, before you figure out whether it's tail of a snake, tail of a rat, tail of a lizard, you are going right back. Whatever the purge is going right back with you. And that is how much self-control we as human beings apply with that inanimate thing called toilet. I
like to say that when people say the devil made me do it, nobody goes in front of a trailer, moving trailer, and say the devil pushed me.
I bet you that the devil is surprised at the same kind of things people are doing. The devil didn't do anything. We are responsible for our actions. Even God gave us free will. Free will. Fantastic. So let's not apply that route. How bad is this in Nigeria? I know you gave some statistics, you know, because I also feel like, or let me ask it as a question, are the rape cases, sexual violation cases, are they underreported? What would you say they are underreported? I would say they are underreported, and I would say they are underreported because of the kind of society we live in. We live in a primarily patriarchal society, which has made women believe that it's okay to be oppressed. What does that mean? I just try to to look at what kind of viewers, different levels of viewers. So a patriarchal society, yes, has tried to make women believe that it's okay for women to be oppressed and suppressed, or begin to count after the last man in the room doesn't feel like counting. It's a man's world. It's a man's world. And so as a woman, you are to be seen and not heard. You are not to be over ambitious. You're not to aspire for too many things. You're only to take what is handed to you. You're not to force your way into the tables. You know, it's a man's world, basically put. So because of that, over time, many women's voices have been drowned. Many people have been socialized into thinking that it's not okay for their voices to be heard or for their emotions to be respected. I was going to ask you, what are some of the misconceptions, even though you started saying that, and misconceptions around sex, started saying that, is that, well, she said yes. Well, the lady too is culpable. Well, she's my wife. Well, I've paid bride price. Is the biggest misconception. She's my property, something I have paid for. And we had a lot of it come up this period. We had a man who killed his wife because she did not give him sex. Wow. And he felt it's his property. Yes, in Nigeria. Wow. And he felt it's his property. Women are emotional beings with human rights. I do what I do today because I need people to remember that our value didn't drop simply because we were born female. I didn't beg to be born female. And so I don't think that God made a mistake. I think that, you know that saying of touch not my anointed and do my prophets no harm. I think that is the thing that has driven me most to take action anytime my rights were violated. Wow. I see myself as the anointed of God. Of the Lord, special, valuable. Exactly. So because over time, Nigeria has been in a patriarchal society. The voices of women have been really low. And then another thing is that when people have reported over time, the systems, people do not trust in our systems to give them succor. The police, the medical services. We took children.
Tell me more. The police, the negligence of the police is more pronounced. It's more out there in the social space. Now you're saying the medical profession. In what way are they negligent?
I'll get back to the police later. So we took 2 children to police. Not, we took on 2 cases. We were called by a school. And by the time we got to the place, we were told initially that one of the mothers went to police and withdrew the case. Upon getting to the police, it turned out to be that the police mandated the woman to drop the case.
Wow.
Then we went to establish medical corroborations of the stories we were told. And then the lab attendant says to the children, both of them were under 10 years old at the time this happened. This was last year. The lab attendant says to the children, come on, open your leg, come on, open your leg. If now the one will go give you 200 naira, now we give you 20 naira, you go open. Come on, open your leg. What? And then first the leg opened and inserted the swab into the, as far as I was concerned, rape had happened just over again. Yeah. And then we also had in that same hospital, the doctors tell us that this time was not rape, that these children, they are used to doing this thing. The first time it happened was rape. It's a lie. As many times it happens, it is rape all over again. And it should be treated as a crime all over again. So if I was going to court, I would be insisting on a lifetime sentence for each of the times it happened. Yeah. So we've had the system, people not trust the system, the legal services. If a 2-year-old is raped in Nigeria today, I'm using 2-year-olds symbolically, 2-year-olds can barely talk. So they represent the 1-day-old, and the 2-year-old doesn't earn a salary. If a 2-year-old is raped, the 2-year-old is expected to pay the medicals of the rapist and the medicals of the 2-year-old.
Are you serious?
Yes. For the baseline assessment says to be taken, that's a prep. The 2-year-old is expected to pay for filing police station. The 2-year-old is expected to pay for police investigations. If the matter is minuted to legal because of troublemakers, according to the way they brand us, or noisemakers like me, or my colleagues in the civil society, then the 2-year-old is expected to pay the police prosecutor usually an average of 5,000 naira per appearance in court. These cases take years most of the time, in prosecuting. Oh, by the way, if in court, the court remands the accused to prison, the 2-year-old is expected to pay the prison officials or the correctional facility officials who are usually on the premises with their vehicle an amount of money for them to transport the accused to the prison where the person is to be held in remand. How much does a 2-year-old earn in Nigeria? Now think about the realities. Even with the case you spoke about earlier,
the one we saw on TV?
The man, yes, the one we saw on TV.
I was going to come to that.
He earns 22,000 naira a month. Now,
if I told me that at the time this happened, he was earning 17,000 naira.
I am aware of that.
Yeah.
I'm fully aware of that. So now think about all these things, and it was 2 of his daughters. So you can imagine the multiple jeopardy it will cost. We had to offset the cost of the medicals. We are offsetting the cost of medicals for a lot of people to even get medical corroborations. Now people sit down and tell you rape is the hardest thing to prove. It's a lie. Rape is the systems for response protocols to sexual and gender-based violence have been deliberately left to decay so that nothing would happen. A lot of
deliberately left by who?
Oh, different people have contributed to it. The police has contributed to it because they provide soft landing for perpetrators. The police has, in many cases that I'm aware of, forced perpetrators, victims to collect 10,000 naira from perpetrators. There are particular police stations I can reel out that it is common occurrence.
I don't get, as in as compensation, take 10,000 and go.
Yes, and go. Wow. Because these people are from really very poor backgrounds. As I speak to you, that was 3 days ago. The police came with so there was a rape of a 14-year-old girl during COVID-19 lockdown, and bad thing. Hospital says that they are not responding to those kind of cases. They're responding only to emergencies. I don't know when rape of a 14-year-old girl stopped being an emergency. When they were heading to the police station to the hospital after they found out what happened, there was the blockade at the roads by the checkpoints so that people don't cross over. Instead of granting them access, they said, who is the rapist? They said the rapist is the one driving. Okay, bring him out. And they beat him thoroughly, made him to remove his clothes and roll in water in the public view of everybody. That debacle took over an hour. The child that was raped was still there. This is a time-sensitive crime, and she needs to get to a hospital. After dealing with this man in their way, they let him to drive the child to the hospital. That's further endangering the child, in my own words. And then they got to the hospital, and the hospital says, oh, we're not attending to this kind of thing. We're attending to only emergencies. I don't know when that stopped being an emergency. Then they say, oh, go and look for police reports before we can start treating this child. And that's a reality. It's a common reality.
That sounds somewhat like what we just saw with the man's testimony. I'm looking at his two daughters. And like you said, your foundation has been working with them. I'm trying to imagine the emotional trauma. How do you manage children like that, 9 and 13, and they were violated by a man perhaps in his 50s?
Yeah. So now, something that I would dare to say is that, of course, there's a direct link between sexual and gender-based violence and mental health. And a lot of times we underestimate the mental health things. People have told him, be a true Christian, prove that you're a true Christian and forgive just as Christ has forgiven you. This is not the time to do so. And I'll tell you why. Even up to now, we have concerns about, the children. I don't know if he also has mentioned to you that he's also been a victim of domestic violence, where he was trying to help the children to get, a motherly figure.
Tell us about that.
So he got in somebody to be a motherly figure to the children, and then he'll come back. She came with her own children, and then he'll come back some days and see the children sleeping outside. He'll come back some days, and then he'll see that his own children have not eaten food, but her children have eaten food. Should they come out for any reason and people dash them anything, she collects the money and gives. She went to his farm and harvested all the things he had in his farm, and she's still expecting him to pay her money for what?
Looking after them.
According to her. So it took a lot of calming him down to say, please, just let's apply the legal routes and everything. Faith in the legal systems is being lost by the day. He's done everything else, and it's still backfiring.
The man is at large.
The man is at large. Oh, the police has told him that when he finds the landlord, that he should call them to arrest the landlord. Usually, to track a number in Nigeria is an average of 30,000 naira. And this man has never earned anything close to 30,000 naira. So, and I mean, he has to feed himself and his family. He has to pay school fees.
What do we need to do to our legal system to make this easy, to encourage people to come out and to at least prosecute perpetrators? Well, from your foundation, I know you may have had some initiatives. Are we sponsoring bills? What are we agitating to bring on board?
Okay, so where do I start from with this? If you see the things that exist on paper, you don't want to live anywhere else but in Nigeria. But in practice, those things, are not implemented, and that's the very first place Nigeria has failed us as, human beings. We have the Child Rights Act. It is justiciable in some 11 states have refused to implement the Child Rights Act, and all of them are in the northern Nigeria.
I had the senator ones that married a 13-year-old.
Yeah, shame on them. I never miss an opportunity to tell them a big shame. What it implies is that the people who undergo these violations don't have access to the quality of justice that is obtainable in the states that have implemented the Child Rights Act. I'd also like to, while thanking Delta State for attempting to pass the Child Rights Act, beg that, it's unfair that you trivialize issues that are supposed to have a life sentence and give them 10 years in prison. So Delta State, please review your Child Rights Act and revert back to the life sentence that was put there. Life sentence is fair enough.
Life sentence for which now? Any rape or for
defilement,
against minors?
Yes.
Is it against minors or any?
With Child Rights Act.
Okay, that's the
Child Rights Act focuses on children.
Okay.
For adults and beneficial to children too, we have the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act. And before, to prove rape, you had to show evidence that you struggled. But now with the Child Rights Act and the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, concept of sextortion, which is extorting sex, are respected.
I like that term, sextortion.
Yes.
Never heard it before.
It brings us back to the fact that consent is the key determinant of whether it was sex or it was a violation. So, and then it also gives definition such that before, rape had to be penetration of the vagina. Now penetration of the mouth, vagina, and anus are encompassed in that. We had a case once where the man would tell the child to face the curtain and she should be making noises for him while he was using the noises she was making to masturbate. Anytime you engage another human being in a sexual activity without the consent of the person, you have committed a violation. Exactly. And so I gave this example to show us ranges of sexual activity.
I wanted to ask, do you just thinking, because UNICEF said, I think the 6 in 10 children are violated, and I think 1 out of 4 women sometimes growing up, have been violated. So when they say children, I'm sure it comprises both sexes. You have cases where maybe little boys have you seen any like that?
There are so many. The thing about this thing is that the prevalence of victimization is on females, right? Yeah,
definitely so.
And the prevalence of perpetrators is with males. There are female perpetrators, there are male perpetraters. There are female
But they're male to male, male pedophiles, male men to male.
Yes, there are male boys to male, male to female. There are times. So, somebody I know, his perpetrator was his mother. His mother would tell him as 3-4 years to climb on her and pee in him.
In her?
Pee in her. And when he doesn't do it, she will beat his head until he learns, and he started peeing in his mother until he learned to have an erection. That was his story. That's the story for so many people. For so many other people, it was inanimate objects that were put in them for a long duration of time. It was so many other, there were too many things, that were done. They were used to, they were made to help masturbate and the rest of, masturbate other people. Wrong is wrong, right is right. Until I consent to being party to the sex, it is not sex.
It's violation.
And so it's important to draw up all these things. And then is there anything that people usually do that will make them, to be susceptible to these things? We've had situations. Oh, that was one of the cases that readily comes to mind in Pape then, where the man used to call the children that came for choir practice in their place.
That means that's a church setting.
Yes, church setting. He used to call the children in and he would tell them that there's an evil spirit in them, which is somewhere inside them. And he has to put a part of his body inside
to exercise the spirit.
Get to where the spirit is. And that was how he was penetrating the boys and the girls in his church. And while he was doing so, his wife was coming to stuff the mouths of the children when they screamed.
Yeah, I was going to come to the family.
I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
When asked, she said, how will people see her? People saw her as pastor's wife. So that was the highest thing ever she could have achieved in her life. And that was going to be taken away from her. First of all, a lot of women, we've had a child.
It didn't matter at what cost.
We've had the child who was 18 months old that the father was abusing. And when I told the
18
mother, months old.
Wow.
When I told the mother what I wanted to do, she said, no, she's not going to be a good wife if she lets me to do so. So MRS, people think they need to defend the title of Mrs. At the expense of the children. There was the one on social media today where the woman is calling her child, her 2-year-old child, a prostitute in local language, and saying that the child is the one that's always going to meet the man. This child is 2 years old, for God's sake, and she was beating the child. So,
Dorothy, we really don't have a lot of time. So I was going to say, well, we started touching that. I wanted to ask, where's the place of the family? Is there a way the family can come in, as in our upbringing, our homes, to help to reduce this? Now, I was going to ask you that question, thinking that family is the safe space, the place to begin. And then I'm hearing some of the things that you are saying, that people even are preyed upon by their parents.
Yes.
Say a word to parents.
Well, parents,
if you can, look into
parents. God has entrusted you with children. Yeah. And in the first instance, the children would not have come by if you had safe sex. So it behoves on you to defend the children all the time. It behoves on you to defend the children all the time. We are pushing for stiff penalties for parents who do not support their children to get justice. We are pushing for stiff penalties for that. And then for situations where the mother is pushing for justice, the father is fighting, please, by all means, don't stop. Reach out. We NGOs, we are there. Busybody, we are there to help you carry the matter on our head and be running. And we'll give you all the support that we can muster up for you.
But let's look for just a safe scenario, a proper home, and parents are trying their best to raise their children well, to raise their son. Are there signs they should look out for? So now we're not looking at parents who abuse their children, looking at parents who are doing what they are supposed to do. They want to raise their children well. What will you tell them to be wary of, to look out for, to be mindful of in raising their children, to protect them from sex predators?
Well, the best you can do is to be a good parent, actually. Predators are like armed robbers. They plan. They pray. They try to endear themselves to the child first, because if you go near a child that doesn't know you, the child will scream. So they try to endear themselves to the child
Like in
first.
this case, the man gave the children, was giving them money.
Yes, I'm aware. They try to endear themselves to the children first so that the children do not scream. Then when they've done that, they try to make the child believe that the child is part of the crime, and if the child talks, they're going to harm the child's family. And many times in response to that, you see children get overtly quiet, they stop eating, they start showing you signs that something is happening. Sometimes the signs they are showing you is about bullying happening in school, or bullying happening within the neighborhood, or bullying in one way or the other. And this scenario of described now is one of the kinds of bullying, because bullies can demand whatever it is. So we should be sensitive. We should be our children's friends. The children should be able to tell you the most stupid of things without thinking that it's going to cost them their lives.
Essential.
Yes. And that's pretty much it. That thing that you don't want to tell children, trust me, they're learning about it from everywhere else. And then when the children start talking, please tell them the names of all their body parts. We've had situations where children came and say, "Uncle put his bum in my bum." When you hear bum, it's the backside, it's the buttocks that comes to mind, right? Or they say, "Uncle Idris put his banana in my mouth." Banana is for consumption. Stop telling children that penises are banana. Your cherry coochie is the vagina. Why do we need this? On terms of, there have been technical grounds, a lot of cases have been thrown out of court because of these.
There was no clarity.
Yes, there was no clarity. And so all the person needs is a smart lawyer, and somehow it's going to go out.
Wriggle out.
So let's prepare children. Comprehensive sexuality education is compulsory, and it is age appropriate. You start by telling them the names of their body, and as they grow up, you start exposing them to functionalities of their body. So the first way is, first of all, is the age. Next thing it is the fact that, these parts are private and the other ones are not private. The next thing it is, wash it by yourself. And if anybody, cleans you up, tell them how many times everybody cleaned you up. This person, I put 2 times today, and uncle this or auntie that cleaned me up, so that you can track records. So these are ways of helping children to be comfortable with their bodies and comfortable with talking about who touched them.
Thank you, Dorothy. I yourself has been a victim of sexual violation or gender-based sexual violation. Do you mind sharing, if it's okay by you, a bit of that? And there was one I saw that I mentioned to you. It was a bit strange to me in this city. Can you tell our viewers a little about that?
I've been sexually violated several times in my life.
Wow.
Why I pin it with 20 is because we were talking once about...
You pin what with 20 as in...
The number of times I've been sexually violated. It's way more than 20. I was trafficked at some point, and so that accounted for the increase in times. But the first time I was sexually violated, I was 8 years. Coming to think about it, the first time I was raped, I was 8 years old. But the first time I was sexually violated, I was younger than 8 years old. And that person just made me to play with the person's body. But the first time there was a penetration, I was 8 years old. It was a neighbor's houseboy and his 3 friends.
What?
And yes, and since after then, it's been different kinds of violations. There have been people who have groped me. Groping is a sexual violation. There have been people that stalked until they came close enough, to at least grope or one thing or the other. There have been people who verbally sexually violated me. There have been people who, so it's there. I do everything I do now trying to help people not to feel the pain I feel or the pains I've lived with. I know from experience, I mean, sleeping is a problem. Depression and anxiety have been things I've managed from when I was a child. I started taking sleeping pills as a child. There are so many situations to it. I mean, there have been really crazy instances, you know. And then as a child, there was somebody once who said, oh, that I should take permission from my parents and sleep over. And I said, no, why would I do that? He says, if I'm shy, she
An
can...
adult?
A child, fellow child.
Okay.
That if I was shy, she could join us.
Wow.
That her daddy wanted me to sleep over in their house. And if I was shy, she could join us.
Oh my.
So her daddy had made her have this impression that she was replacing her mother in his life. And she used to give him sexual everything.
Sexual pleasure.
Yes, and she was a child. There are so many of these things we have seen. So many of them. But I know things from experience. I know how difficult it is from experience. And I know how bad the hypocrisy is. You know, oh, what were you doing there? Why won't he look at you this way?
What did you say? What did you
what
do?
did you
How
say?
did you dress?
Exactly.
Why
When
did
you
go to
slept in his house, when you are thinking slept in his house, what of the females? What of the times? There's somebody who is very dear to me. In this case, it was so she was raped and then she went in for an abortion, and then the doctor was the one who made it, who was now raping her as condition to do the abortion. They didn't like, the people don't like telling me things because they feel like I have a way of taking things from 0 to 1,000. I go beyond 100. And when she told me that, I said, no problem, let's go, I won't say anything. She went in and I waited outside. Just at the nick of time, when I barged into the place, the man was already naked. There his penis was facing her. I told him, whatever you want to, look, now is the time. Let's get things sorted out. You know? And this was the radical me from back then. The daily, if our people are honest and tell us how many times people sexually harass them, if your children are honest and tell you how many times people try to grope at them every time they go to a store to buy something. A lot of people do not go to markets. Females do not go to markets because of the sexual harassments that go on in markets. Yeah. Somebody recently released a video where he said he has been feeling one 12-year-old girl that has been coming to his shop. And so later he came, when the girl came to the shop.
Released it with social media?
It's on social media, yes. Wow. And then that he said, not rape her more, he just do chucky.
Wow.
That is sexual harassment. Look, and then the worst of it I hate is when people tell girls, especially elderly women, you people, you know that when you arouse men, you know an erect penis has no conscience. This erected prisons should please stop having conscience. I gave an analogy of what happens in the toilet even when you are purging. You understand? Purging doesn't have conscience. But people find a way to pause. When men go out on the streets everywhere and then they unleash their penises to pee, do we go grabbing them? We don't. So why do we teach women how to be human and keep making excuses?
Do you want to talk about
men?
the AEPB thing?
So, hey, that's how I was minding my business.
Short, our time is almost up,
beautiful. That's how I was minding my business. So, and I came into Abuja, and somewhere along the line, I found out that females were being randomly abducted and grossly violated. And I started by advocating for other people. Next thing, it didn't happen to me. I parked behind a bus, and I left somebody in the car. She told me, I had her on my radio program that afternoon, and she says that for having her on my program, she was going to help with my makeup. And that's how God planted a human being with me. On coming out, I was abducted by those people. I was groped by the breast. I was shoved into a bus, and then eventually the soldiers beat me up.
Wow.
Long story short,
who are these people who did this?
Abuja Environmental Protection Board. And then we entered serious investigation. FCT administration was, very much part of it, the Nigerian police, the Nigerian army. Then eventually they beefed up their task force to include road safety, NDLEA, VIO, all of them. And I'm wondering, what's the war against women? Of course, there's a documentary to this effect. It's called Silent Tears. It's on YouTube.
So you can watch her story, the documentary on her Silent Tears.
Yes, Silent Tears on YouTube. So if you see silent tears, you understand it more. But the issue there was they were trying to use morality policing to replace the provisions of the law, that guarantee people like me, Dorothy Njemanze, my human rights. That wasn't going to happen. After everything, it's accumulated in me taking Nigeria to court. I was the lead plaintiff in the Dorothy Njemanze and 3 others versus the Federal Republic of Nigeria in the ECOWAS court. And it led to a landmark judgment where for the first time ever, the Maputo Protocol was cited in a court judgment. And it has opened ways for a lot of women around Africa that, use that in the ECOWAS states, to leverage on that precedent that is set to seek justice. Despite that, Nigeria has not paid the compensations that were awarded to us. Why am I bringing this? More people that we tell don't take the laws into your hands, approach the courts, keep telling me when you approach the court and they give compensation, what happened next? So you see, this is how the government's silence fuels the corruption that is grooming sexual and gender-based violence in Nigeria. It's about time. Everybody has a role to play. Whatever your role, whatever parts of the society you're in, if you see something, you say something. Many times, what can you do? You don't have to be on the street and radical like us, but you can support us, because even on the way here for this interview, there was another sexual violation that has been reported to us of a woman who has 3 children. So what shelter am I going to keep her in? Sometimes we pay for hotels for these people, and we don't have these resources. The government doesn't support us, but the government always takes credit for the work we do. I don't have a problem with the taking credit, but some responsibility on everybody's part.
What's
can
fueling
help.
your fire? I can say a passion towards it. Where is that coming from?
The passion is coming from the fact that I tried to take my life so many times because of the things that I have gone through.
Wow.
I have woken up so many times.
Sorry, Dorothy, to interrupt you. I asked that question because there may have been women who went through experience and they are looking at you and like wondering, how did she bounce back? I went through all of this.
I don't know that there's a bounce back. I'm still in the process of bouncing back. I'm still in the process of bouncing back. Sometimes I'm speaking to people and then I'm like, wait a minute, what am I doing on this side? I should be on the other side. I'm wondering, wow. So these kind of words have been in my mouth since, and I've never said them to myself. I wake up so many days crying, wondering what I'm still doing in life. And so when certain things happen, all I need to do is listen, and then I'll pick the holes in the story. A lot of gifts that I have been, if I didn't act on the emotions, I wouldn't realize them. For instance, if I'm talking to a child about sexual violence, all the child needs to do is describe where it's happening, and I will feel the thing exactly where the child is. And so I didn't know these things until I started practicing, until I started,
So you are healing people even through your pain.
Every day is an opportunity to heal for me. Every day is an opportunity to heal for me. Just like every day there are triggers, every day is an opportunity to heal.
What would you like to see done differently to protect the females in our country as much as possible?
I would like to see the Child Rights Act justiciable in every state of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act justiciable and implemented accordingly in every state of Nigeria, the Gender and Equal Opportunities Bill, I'd like to see it come to bear. I'd like to see that people are signing, politicians are made to sign that they're going to uphold the war against sexual and gender-based violence, and so that means it comes back to the decisions we make during elections.
Does that mean that if they sign that, does that mean that they have no immunity? Does the immunity cover that?
Whether or not
because there was a case
it.
recently with somebody in the house with a lady, and I've not heard anything about that matter again.
The senator that beat a woman.
That's one. I think there's another one.
The thing about it is we document these things and we keep, and glory be to God, the internet does not forget. And so let's see where they're going to go tomorrow, because so many people's aspirations go beyond Nigeria. The Kogi state won. The state government was shielding the man, and corruption has been fighting back. But you know, one thing is sure. It's difficult to hide the truth. The truth is like a hydra-headed monster. When you have closed it here, it still grows out like a root and shoots off from the next place. That's what the truth is like. And so I'm happy to help. I'm happy to be, part of this process. Some things that need to happen. when women or victims of sexual and gender-based violence need to live wherever they are, short-term shelters is not the only solution they need. Forcing them to go and stay with extended families who do not have the appropriate orientation is not the solution.
Them, yeah.
We need to think about scholarships for victims. We need to think about business establishments for victims. We need to think about giving the victims accommodation that they can start in. And
counseling and all of those.
An average of 500,000 naira per person is the budget for this. How much was used to renovate National Assembly again? We don't have forensic laboratories, and that's an abysmal failure. There's a lot to be done, but by and large, let's start from here. A state of emergency needs to be declared on sexual and gender-based violence. Can we try and use the hashtag state of emergency GBV in everything we think about that comes to mind on these issues of of sexual and gender-based violence? Let's make it trend. Yeah. Let's start a countdown. Today is day 3 of the countdown.
Final words. What would you say to perhaps women who've been violated? What would be your counsel, your closing comments to them? If there's somebody watching, or some down the road watch this.
So if you have been violated, I say one thing: a silent mouth is a silenced destiny. I'm not trying to tell you how to go about whatever actions you take. You want to take.
Is there a place they can speak out?
Of course, there are places people can speak out
without the fear of stigmatization.
Oh yes, there are sexual assault referral centers that have been established. If there's no sexual assault referral center in your local government, disturb your senator, disturb your governor. If you don't know what to do about it, check her story, ourstory.ng. You know how to do
ourstory.ng.
Yes. Although you can check us out on the Dorothy Njemanze Foundation website. We put out all these resources there. And yeah, if you don't need to get to the website, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram. There are so many things to do. Engage the legislators, engage your governments, your governors. You are the ones that employed them. Wow. Tell them what to do, because the next election cycle is by the corner.
Wow. Thank you so very much, Dorothy.
Thank you.
It appears that this is one topic that we can't just exhaust, because there's still so much to talk about. And I think there's so much inside you that you are still supposed to bring us. So maybe one day, some other time, we'll have you on Safe Space with Pastor Wale. It's so good to have you. Thank you very much. Thank you, our viewers. We wish we could do more. You can ask questions on the chat box. We'll see how we can answer some of those. I want to thank you for being a part of this. For another edition, we would like you to join us. Enjoy your day, your weekend. God bless you, and bye-bye.